Hey, you're back. Thank you for joining me yet again and continuously helping me work through this process of mine. I find this next chapter pretty interesting, actually. It's chapter 28. It's called Golden Opportunities. And I say it's interesting because I guess when I amalgamated my 3 smaller books into one, right? I've talked about this before, but I've got 3 separate books that I ended up putting into one very thick volume called Homecoming. I wanted to drop this chapter out. I did. I wanted to drop it out. I didn't, obviously. I don't know. When I think about that, I guess I think that it's part of my life I'm not very proud of. Even though I know that sometimes our life path is refined through trial and error, through faith in the bigger picture, even if we don't understand the bigger picture. And probably one of the regrets that I've had is how this chapter unfolded, and yet not. So it's very intriguing to me. What I can tell you right now, at this point in my life, is that I wish I would have had enough confidence in myself to believe in my own path and invested in me. And if I had done that from the onset, maybe this chapter would have looked a little different. But I didn't invest in myself at first. I invested in others. I invested in things outside of myself. And that's how I got to write this chapter, Golden Opportunities. It is how I have wanted to take it out over the years, and yet it's how it's still in here. Okay? Here we go. Back in 2011, when I was dabbling in the mystical arts and yet not doing healing and teaching work as a full-time gig, I had put out some lofty ambitions and requests to the universe. My desire to move into this line of work was an inner calling that gained so much momentum over the years that I craved it with every ounce of my soul. However, my existing career and financial status at the time was holding me back, and I definitely needed a solution. Truth, I needed a solution. Please, provide me with the time and space away from work in order to gain clarity and confidence. Please, provide an easy and acceptable way to transition from my original line of work that both co-workers and family could understand. Please support me in all ways as I learn to stand in my role. And while you're at it, please provide the financial stability to build and sustain the center of my dreams and the life I truly desire. Thanks be to God. For those who've already read my first book or been a part of this journey as I read my story, you understand that most of my request was provided by means of a concussion. Not really what I had in mind, but an opportunity and clear sign for change nonetheless. However, what I didn't discuss within my first accounts of this adventure was the financial aspect of my request. You see, I had not just asked for a little money to get by with and make ends meet. What I asked for was unlimited abundance and freedom to study, teach, write, travel, and fully be of service to this world and to myself without the financial burdens holding me back. A large order, I understand. But if we truly create the reality we live in through our thoughts and intentions, then why aren't we dreaming bigger yet? So soon after my SOULworks Center was underway, I began to feel pressure from my family to start paying back the financial resources I had utilized to get my business up and running. Not that their concerns were uncalled for, by the way. Technically, over the course of 1 year, I had quit my full-time job to follow my passion. I still had very few clients to speak of, with no income flowing, and I had recently also taken on the ambitions of opening my center, and by doing so, eating up our financial savings. It was really a lot of pressure for all of us. And although I could not stop this forward movement of change in my life, I did understand the mounting fears. It was during this time that I once again looked to the heavens for support. If I am truly to follow my dreams of becoming a teacher and healer, and if there is a perfect solution I have not yet considered, then please provide the clear sign and opportunity to repay my family's debts, I pleaded. That night, my guides foretold I would be approached with an investment opportunity. Within the next few days, actually. Their advice was to say yes, regardless of my fears or seemingly bleak reality of not having the finances to do so. The guidance came in so clearly that I vowed to follow through if and when I was asked. Of course, the spirit world was correct, and a few days later I was presented with an opportunity to invest in gold. From my perspective, the opportunity sounded interesting and financially beneficial if, in fact, it was the real deal. Now, to me, the investment also reminded me of biblical prophecy, where a new world order was put into place. However, the energy behind this particular opportunity, gosh, I'm having trouble speaking this one. See, I didn't want it in my book, but here it is. So we're just going to forge through it, okay? Okay. However, the energy behind this particular opportunity did not remind me of a one world order kind of system, but rather a we are one in this world kind of order kind of system that could definitely benefit society if implemented properly. I also did not believe the investment structure was designed merely for the rich to get richer and the poor to financially finance those hidden agendas of control or hierarchy. Not to say some monetary operations in this world do not reek of that kind of design. I'm just saying this one felt softer and more harmonious. Sure, some days when I let my logic get in there, the concept smelled of scam and delusion. But to my heart and soul, I knew full well what my guides had told me. I also knew it was an answer to my prayers and would prove to be life-changing if I could rise above my own fears. Them are tricky, aren't they? At the time, I did not actually feel I had the money to participate. In fact, my family had requested I find a way to pay back our debts, not add to them. Feeling that inner struggle when moving between fear and surrender, I asked my guides for a clear sign by the morning so a decision could be made. I got nothing. All evening and well into the night, the lack of communication was deafening. However, in the morning, my day started on a much different note. As my alarm clock went off at its usual time, the first words I heard the news anchor say that were the following: "Today is a great day to invest in yourself and your future." In my half-awakened state, I laughed at the straightforwardness of the message and then leaned over and hit the snooze button, as I do. Pretty cool, I thought to myself. But show me another sign, because we're talking about a lot of money here. 10 minutes later, my alarm clock went off again, singing, "I thank the bank for the money, thank God for you." I laughed out loud. That certainly got my attention. That was a classic Sawyer Brown song I used to listen to over and over again during my youthful, unencumbered days. It hadn't been years since I heard or thought of those lyrics, or even acted as spontaneously as I used to back in the day, for that matter. I had literally been years. I lay there and contemplated the divine timing in those two events, the timing of those exact lyrics at that exact time, the timing of the newscaster who in truth may not even been talking about money investments at all. However, by some magical synchronicity of divine timing, those were only the words that I heard that morning. Today is a great day to invest in yourself and your future. Thank the bank for the money. Thank God for you. Done and done. I talked to my husband over lunch, said a few blessings and prayers as I took the money out of our line of credit and then transferred the funds on sheer faith in the divine. The blessing of it was that even though it was a lot of money, on the grand scheme of things, my husband and I, we were okay with the investment going either direction. We were, which is actually a very critical component in manifesting. We had lost more investment dollars in the fluctuating interest rates alone that year. So if the golden adventure went south, then so be it. Then so be it. Now, about 4 months of waiting, and yet no tangible return on my gold investment to speak of, we ended up in the same monetary scenario. My family was once again expecting me to replace the financial resources I had borrowed. In addition, I was in dire need of even more financial support to sustain the center. Within this reoccurring low point and financial crisis, yet again, I did what any good spiritualist would do. I cried well into the night and asked for a divine intervention. My cry for help was answered the very next day. Really, no surprises here. At this point in my life, I had just come to accept this is the way the world worked. Ask and I receive. Ask and I receive again. But I do feel humbled every time I ask for something and an opportunity arises almost immediately. This time, it was a second opportunity with the same investment. I would, but I seriously don't have the cash. I argued with myself that day. $5,000 was a lot of money to come up with on the spur of the moment when I had access to zero funds. What I did have was access to an ever-growing mountain of debt. You will find the funds. Agree to make the contributions and we will sort out the details later, my guides had assured me. So once again I took the plunge. I transferred money out of my line of credit and into an overseas account with no solid idea of who or what it was linked to. Truth. Smells like a scam, my family told me. Do you know who this is going to? The bank teller questioned and cautioned. In truth, it did sound like a scam to me too. It does not matter though, my heart contended. I have learned to trust my guides and intuition. It made no sense that my spiritual team would set me up for failure. I did worry that my ego was getting in the way, but any time I remembered back to the guidance received, it was clear, calm, and full of love, not fear. Besides, every single time I transferred money, there was so much excitement in the air that it was almost indescribable. I felt like a giddy schoolgirl and as confident as a peacock. For a few hours, anyways. Then the excitement and energy would die down and I would be left with the feeling of anxiety and worry. What have I done? What have I done? I would question over and over again. I truly did not have the money to be making this commitment in the first place, let alone a second time. But Spirit always seemed to find a way, and they had never let me down. In fact, by the week's end, all the funds, plus a little extra money, had been replaced into my accounts by means of a mysterious check received in the mail. A full year of overpayments on bills with one of my suppliers. Miraculous, to say the least. I kept this process up for 2.5 years. About every 4 to 6 months, as I would reach a point where I requested more finances to hold down the fort, and each time I would receive a small amount of funds. Enough to get by on, that's for sure. And I was always heartfelt and content with the money received. I was. However, what always followed my good fortune with my family's mounting anxiety about the state of our debt. In truth, a few $1,000s was not going to cut it. I had spent a huge chunk of our savings and still was not bringing any income in. And so, as weird as it sounds, each time that little bit of heavenly money would flow into my world, I would flow it right out back again on another investment opportunity that always showed up within the same week. It was a synchronistic dance that kept happening over and over again. You are succumbing to greed, some would say to me. Have you completely lost your mind? Others would interrogate. I admit some of their fears also reflected my own, but in my heart of heart I knew better. I had asked for some large-scale finances to help support my endeavors, and it was large-scale opportunities that kept arriving. At one point, my family was starting to fall apart. It was, from the sheer stress of it all. I was even confronted about my unequivocal attitude to risk everything on faith, as well as my tenacity to take advice from dead people, instead of those standing right in front of me, pleading me to stop. Yep, that conversation was pretty harsh. Truth be told, they were right. How is it I had moved into having more faith in the spirit world than our earthly counterparts? A week after this discussion, another set of dollars and an investment opportunity presented itself. And I thought long and hard about this leap of faith and enticing prospect. At what point is enough enough? At what point do you let your logical mind lead instead of your heart? I pondered. The answers came in fast and furious. Treat others the way you would want to be treated. Only move forward with as much faith and conviction as your soul energy can handle at any one given time. Do not put others' lives into total flux just to make your own soul happy. There must be a balance point when you take into account how your actions are also affecting the lives of others. Point taken. Would you believe on that very day the guitar player from our wedding ceremony of nearly 20 years previous contacted me? Seriously, what are the chances? He found a copy of our wedding invitation in a pile of papers and messaged me just to let me know that he found it and to remind me of that magical day. You know, the day I pledged my love for better or for worse, for richer or for poor. The day I walked down the aisle towards my future husband with the guitar player strumming the song More Than Words. The lyrics of that song echoed the same message I had just received from my guides. Love is not depicted by mere words. It is expressed through our actions and level of compassion expressed towards those we claim to love. I understood the symbolism perfectly. My guides even threw in a little biblical scripture to reinforce the directive. It was Revelations 19:9. Blessed are those who are invited to the marriage supper of the Lamb. Not being religious in any way. The reference was a little odd to me at the time. However, guidance is guidance, regardless of how it arrives, and this was no different. My interpretation was simple, actually. Blessed are those who remember and abide by the sacred union of love. Don't sacrifice others' happiness for your own. The divine counsel made complete sense. Perhaps I had pushed one investment too far. I still knew, without a doubt, these investments were important to my faith. I did. I knew it was important to my faith and to my family and my own entire life's work. But the actual return of investment means nothing if I had no one to share it with. I was blessed enough as it was. I talked to my husband that night and told him of my conclusions. I would leave the opportunity be. I had chosen family and living in the now over the potential funds for living in the future. Some things are just not worth that kind of risk. It was a good talk. We both knew we had experienced this growth for many reasons. Neither of us worried one way or the other how it all played out. If the investment worked, we'd be grateful. On the other hand, in the very real possibility it didn't work out, we would still be grateful for the lessons learned. Ironically, at the end of that day, those original investment dollars I utilized could have gone towards a new vehicle or helped pay off our mortgage or make all kinds of changes in our life. And instead, I invested on faith. I did. In the meantime, we were content where we were in life, and that was all that mattered. I slept well that night, knowing all was well in my world. However, by the end of the week, the investment opportunity changed, and the offered rate of return had quadrupled. To me, it felt like the movie Indecent Proposal, remember? But with a twist of faith involved, and of course no weird exchange of sex needed to seal the deal. But it felt cruel to me that the universe would make a person choose between a huge, unfathomable sum of money and my family's sanity. Why couldn't we have both? I questioned. I even researched how the movie Indecent Proposal ended. Truth, as my memory had failed me. The biggest question on my mind was, did they remain together? Or did it come with a price? No, sorry. I read that wrong. The biggest question on my mind was, did they remain together, or did the experience forever ruin their marriage? They stayed together, but it came with a price. All things do, I reasoned to myself as I made a transfer and drove the long road home to tell my husband what I had just done yet again. It's hard to make people understand when the pull from your soul is so strong that any amount of logic or fear will not stop that forward motion of change. You see, what happened between that indecent proposal offer and my decision to transfer the funds was a whole lot of miraculous signs that one can only understand when you're in the flow of energy. It makes no sense to the logical mind at all. My guides, who have always referred to themselves as part of the Essene group, confided that during the biblical times of Jesus and Mary Magdalene, their sect of people had secured gold reserves to be used during the coming of age. I researched this odd piece of information online and found it to be true, or at least suspected to be true. My guides then quoted a verse within Revelation. Being unfamiliar with biblical scriptures, I opened my Children's Living Bible, in all honesty, likely the first time since I received it back in 1981, and I read the quoted scripture. It was Revelation 3:18. My advice to you is to buy pure gold from me, gold purified by fire. I sat there dumbfounded by the download of guidance and confirmation received. Very bizarre. My spiritual team also pointed out that a few weeks prior, I had discussed how I had already started to outgrow the current location of my center and had requested further funding to expand into a larger space. They pointed out my current dreams had clearly moved beyond my original goals, and so the financial backing also had to expand. The actual deal breaker and tipping point was actually a quick comment from a friend, though. A dear friend whom I had confided in and asked for some solid advice on how to proceed. Her response was adamant and clear. The opportunity sounds like temptation and the devil's work, she quickly replied. To be honest, her response made me furious. Not really at her per se, but at the reality of the discussion and the magnitude of the old fear-based systems that are still shockingly in place around the globe. The exact fear-based realities I was working to help change. How can following one's dreams be compared to sin? I mean, really, how can our biblical system claim we are to ask and receive, and then scold us when we faithfully move forward on the guidance and opportunities presented. The entire premise was just so wrong to me, and certainly brought clarity into my awareness fast and furious. All I needed was to have enough faith in my heart to acknowledge that my soul, and not my ego, was guiding me to take this last financial leap of faith. I needed to believe my family and pocketbook could withstand the pressure and future outcome no matter how long it took to pass. That being said, it was also the very last investment I ever made, despite many more opportunities to jump right back into the game. In the buffet of life, where abundance is plentiful, there is a balance point when it makes no sense to put more on your plate than you and those at your table can comfortably handle, or even enjoy for that matter. I also vowed that if my gold pursuits were linked to greed, false authoritative power, or my own ego-driven desires in any way, shape, or form, instead of the heart-filled, soulful drive I believed them to be, then I would, in all honesty, rather live without any monetary gain at all. Truth. From my perspective, a simple life that took into account the effects my actions were having on others, even if accompanied with an overloaded financial obligation, was way more desirable than receiving financial abundance through ego-based self-indulgences or power-hungry investment groups. If that were the situation I had placed myself and my family in, then I was willing to leave the whole experience in the past as one hell of a very hard and expensive lesson my soul had to learn. I released the entire outcome to my angelic team that day and asked them to remove those golden opportunities from my life if the intentions or guidance had been wrongfully followed. I sobbed as I let go of all expectations and fully vowed to stay heart-centered always. Not that we can't accomplish vast opportunities regardless of their ethical vibration, but rather I wanted nothing to do with situations that were not in the vibration of the heart-centered person I strive to be. I completely left the situation in the hands of God, based on the purity of my heart during the time of the exchange, as well as the intentions of those behind the investment. Was my heart and the hearts of those managing that investment opportunity in the right place? I questioned. Only time will ever tell. Either way, those were some of the rockiest and most challenging years of my life. Was it worth it? Was it? In many respects, yes. Would I follow my guidance to such extreme levels again? Still do. So most likely, yes. Would I push my family to the brink of extinction? No. No. I would, to this day, only push us as far as I thought we could handle. I know change is hard. True faith is a learned process, and fears are very real. However, I also know that my intuition and spiritual team have never led me astray. They have never. when we put faith in the divine reciprocates and pays us back 1,000-fold, regardless of where that abundance eventually comes from. Truth. Ask and you shall receive is a true law governing this world we live in. If you can get past your fears and keep your ego in check, you can even put your money where your mouth is. Evolving your soul works. I've come to realize it is easy for people to fear when investing money or making big life decisions. Of course it is. What I've also learned is that if we truly take the time to feel the energy and intentions behind the opportunity, we can learn to tell the difference between the ever so common money-making scams out there, which are running rampant right now, so be cautious, and legitimate opportunities of prosperity and guidance from our guides and angels. We can also learn to tell if it is our soul driving the change or just our ego. Or personality on how we expect things to unfold. That's a thing. That's a thing. Always follow your soul while being mindful and compassionate to all those you are affecting. There is a notable difference between standing in your power to create ego-based change and standing in your divine light to open up to and inherit the abundance of this miraculous kingdom. The key to manifesting change is moving forward with what resonates with your heart, whether your mind and current circumstances have caught up with you yet or not. When I made the request to the ethers for financial support, I never in a million years would have dreamed the support would arrive by first requiring leaps of faith towards obscure investments. However, at the end of the day, the opportunity and signs from above in response to my pleas showed up in exactly that form. Why? I don't know yet, but they did. Your faith and forward movements, yes, your faith and forward movements will always create positive change, even if it arrives in a different package than your logical mind can comprehend. Narrow-minded thinking will dismiss opportunities that present themselves. The vital component to manifesting is to bypass your current beliefs on how you think the universe will support you. Truth. And instead learn to just trust and expect the universe will simply support you. Period. In other words, did I even need the money? No. I was supported anyways. But you know what I did learn how to do? Trust and make huge leaps of faith when they did not make sense. Because sometimes the guidance and the reason we do things is not clear yet. That does not mean that the guidance wasn't there. Now, we all deserve to inherit abundance in all forms. Abundance of joy, abundance of love, abundance of peace, abundance of resources, abundance of spiritual favor, and yes, even abundance of wealth. We put this inherent right into motion by utilizing our free will to create change. Change is not new. Change is how our world and the people in it have continued to evolve for ages. What is new about change in this era of time is the sheer volume of people experiencing huge magnitudes of significant change in their lives. How we choose to utilize these times of change is quite simply up to each individual. The gates of abundance and prosperity are fully opened for all those who understand the laws of divine universe and intention. Laws of divine universe and intention. Society is becoming much more aware of their ability to co-create our world. Through these avenues, people have the ability to create a golden life of magical manifestations. For those who have yet to fully open to this awareness and state of being, Spirit also gives you their full support and undivided attention. However, you are here of your own free will. So Spirit will not create the changes for you. Instead, they will show you the way by providing nudges, support, encouragement, and inspiration along the journey. You must still be the driving force to help move your life forward. Please also remember that change does not always feel comfortable. Not at all. We are moving from an old pattern of existence to a new one. And sometimes this brings up many emotions and events in our lives that will take us way out of our comfort zones. During this particular time of change, I want you to stay focused on your heart-centered goals and remember the following. Life is not meant to be a challenge unless that challenge brings you joy. Life is not meant to be fearful unless that fear brings you love. Life is not meant to be sorrowful unless that sorrow brings you growth. Life is not meant to be complicated unless that complexity brings you awareness. Life is not meant to be dark unless that darkness brings you enlightenment. Life is not meant to be still unless that stillness propels you into change. Your move. Ask and receive. Review your belief systems regarding the laws that govern your world. Are you setting restrictions on how your potential reality? Wait, what did I say? Are you setting restrictions on your potential reality based on outdated fears or talk of sin, evil, and temptation? Do not get me wrong. There are definitely such things as evil in this world. However, moving forward with your own dreams, so long as they take into account how your actions are affecting the well-beings of others, is by no means part of this colossal category of fear-based doctrines. So which is it? Are you going to believe you can truly ask and then receive? Or are you going to limit your receiving to stay within the comfort zones of your existing manifesting potential? Secondly, feel the clarity. Learning how to follow your soul's reaction instead of your logical mind's overreaction is an art. It's an art that takes time to master. However, the underlying clarity comes from remembering the original feeling and response of your soul. even when followed by fears and doubt. In that moment, when an opportunity was presented, your inner spirit will respond. Pay attention. Did the opportunity feel in alignment with your soul? Did you feel inner peace and calm as the guidance came in? Did you get excited just before the moment when you started talking yourself out of it or dismissing the information altogether? Seek to remember the moment your spirit responded. Inner peace is unlike any other emotion your ego can conjure. Follow the voice of your soul. Also, strive to remember that each soul has its own unique path. Therefore, what might feel great to one individual may not feel right to the next. That does not make it wrong. It just indicates a different path that may or may not feel right to you at this moment in time. Treat everything as a sign. When you're in sync with your own soul, the universe works to create and confirm aspects of your current and potential reality. Watch for the small signs, conversations, song lyrics, and inner reflections that provide the clarity needed. This communication system is always available to those who are open to the possibility of its existence. Watch for the things that catch your attention, and for even just a millisecond, make time stand still and capture your awareness. Our soul is drawn to information or opportunities we truly need to hear. So even though our brains are bombarded by information overloaded on a daily basis, our soul has the capacity to see beyond the chaos and pull our attention to one out of a billion bits of information passing us by in any given moment. Do not dismiss this insight. Develop your spiritual connection. I do realize I have fine-tuned my visual and auditory perceptions of spiritual guidance to an infinite degree. But you can too. One of my favorite activities is what I call spirit flashcards. To practice tapping into that sixth sense, ask your spirit team to send you random images, thoughts, words, smells, or feelings. Call them out as fast as they enter your conscious awareness. Even if you think you're making it all up, play my game anyways. You will be surprised at how often and quickly you expand to develop this inherent muscle lying dormant within. And I need to interject here to give you an example. So spirit flashcards are simple, random images. They're not complex, life-changing things we need to understand. It's learning how to open that dialogue. So for example, I just saw a beach ball bounce towards me, like a soccer ball, but it was definitely a beach ball. And then I heard the words, "Hello, Lauren, we're still here." And of course I acknowledged that came in from up high and came into my awareness right at that moment. And then I also just saw in front of me sand, like the sands of time, and understanding that every step we make is just a small step into the vastness that is our soul. And we are to take it one step, one grain of sand, and one bit of awareness at a time. Okay? Get the idea? Practice. All right. Now, keep the lines of communication open. Working with your team on a continual basis during the simple, smaller tasks in life will help to develop your communication and the spiritual realms, with the spiritual realms. That way, when the bigger opportunities and decisions present themselves, you already have a system in place. You already know how to work with your guides. Most people operate the opposite way. They tend to keep their questions from the spirit world to a minimum and ask for guidance only during those big looming changes, and are then frustrated when they can't get the clear guidance. Instead, I propose you seek practical advice from your guides and angels all day long to help gain clarity and confidence in the invisible divine force working with you every single day. When you find yourself at the grocery store and forgot your list at home, ask your guides to fill in the blanks or remind you what is needed. If your fridge is empty and you need a creative, fast solution for supper, ask your guides for ideas on the ideal dinner menu using ingredients you have on hand. When you have a list of errands a mile long, do not let logic dictate which order you will follow. Ask your guides to provide their insights. Spirit works with us through impressions, thoughts, ideas, and images. Wait, what? I'm getting hungry. It's past lunch. Must be all that talk about what to eat. Okay, a few more sentences here. Spirit works with us through impressing thoughts, ideas, and images within our awareness. Do not dismiss this as your own logical brain deducing a solution. Ask the question and follow the promptings that come in. The exciting part of utilizing this process are the amounts and moments in time when you start to realize additional information penetrating your mind that was not a part of your initial awareness or mindset. You're going to love it. Truth. Because even as I was reading that chapter, I finally understood why I had to go through that process of investing in gold. I've always said I have a biblical entanglement. That's just more, I don't know if I'd call it proof, but validation I needed to confirm that I know that my path kept unfolding in alignment with those biblical scriptures, and that I'm working to get on the other side of that. I'm almost there. Thank you for joining me through this amazing journey that we call life.